Grass-type Pokemon tend to stay towards the bottom of the ladder when it comes to the TCG, even more so the bug types that get lumped into that grass-type card. Lately, one bug in particular has grabbed my attention due to its powerful niche in modern play. It's Beedrill, a big old wasp with stingers for hands. And a regular stinger, of course. In this video, we will be looking at the printed history of Beedrill in the mainline TCG, so we're going to be looking at every single time Beedrill has been printed, talk about the artwork, its competitive viability, and as always determine if the TCG representation lives up to Beedrill's in-game lore. I said wasp before, but now that I look at Beedrill again, maybe it's like a hornet or a yellow jacket? If you're an entomologist, let me know down in the comments. But anyway, this is Beedrill's debut to the TCG in base set. And yeah, looking at it, it's not much. 80 HP on a stage 2 is not great. Attack cost of 3, also not great. The fighting resistance and the free retreat do help it out a little bit. With the help of Pokemon Breeder and double colorless energy, you can get a twin needle off on turn 2, but it's also based on coin flip, so not very reliable. Next is Kogas Beedrill, one of my favorites. I do have a couple of deck lists on the channel already featuring this card. One pattern that I do really enjoy about Beedrill across printings is that a lot of times its viability is boosted by the Weedle and Kakuna cards that are also printed in that set. So looking at Kogas Kakuna's Pokemon Power Emerge, you get the option to flip a coin, and if heads, evolve straight from Kakuna into Kogas Beedrill. So with the right coin flip, you can actually evolve from Kogas Weedle into Kogas Kakuna into Kogas Beedrill in the same turn, because Wizards of the Coast ruled at the time that Emerge as a Pokemon power bypassed the evolution rule, saying that you couldn't evolve a Pokemon twice in the same turn. They also ruled that this power could bypass Fossil Aerodactyl's Pokemon power that would normally prevent evolutions, just in case it ever comes up. But even if you miss that coin flip, Kogas Kakuna has a great 1 energy attack in Toxic Secretion. But back to the Beedrill itself, the free retreat is pretty nice, and the fighting resistance doesn't go as far in base gym or gym only as it would have earlier in the competitive scene, but Nerve Poison is a great attack, and the attack that I like to focus on when I use this card in decks, but the hyper competitive option is with Hyper Needle. Because given the right coin flip off of Kakuna's Emerge power, you can evolve up into Kogas Beedrill on turn 2, with the help of double colorless, use Hyper Needle on turn 2, and with another key coin flip, you could potentially be dealing 70 damage very early in the game, which is really good. And yeah, there's a kickback to where if you flip tails, it does nothing, and you can't use Hyper Needle again as long as this card stays in play. But thanks to cards like Scoop Up and Mr. Fuji, it's pretty easy to remove Beedrill from play and get it back into play just as quickly as you did the first time. It is a risky play and it's not very consistent thanks to all the coin flipping, but it's an extremely fun deck to play just as a random rogue. Neo Discovery Beedrill is maybe my favorite Beedrill artwork that we're going to talk about today, and this is another one of my low-key favorite cards to use just because of its utility as an early game attacker with free retreat. If you're playing base Neo, then you can Breeder up into this Beedrill on turn 2. It's not going to care about energy removals because you only need 1 energy to attack anyway, and it is a big threat for Clefas that early in the game. It loses a lot of viability in Neo on because of that fire weakness, but it is still a big threat to baby Pokemon. And it's a pretty solid alternative for if you want to play a Jumpluff deck but not actually play Jumpluff. The next Beedrill to be printed was from the Japanese exclusive Versus set with Bugsy's Beedrill, and boy oh boy is that a lot of yellow. Like most cards in the Versus set, there's not really much to talk about competitive wise. You know, it's a Pokemon with attacks. That's about all I can say. The same could probably be said for Janine's Beedrill, but I think it's quite a bit better compared to Bugsy's, just as a basic Pokemon that can attack for 2 energy and get some decent effects off of coin flips. Yeah, it's alright. I much prefer the artwork on Janine's Beedrill to Bugsy's Beedrill as well. I really like that background blur effect. Skyridge Beedrill is probably, competitively, the most iconic Beedrill card out there, because it really set the pace for the Speedrill archetype. Before we get into the Speedrill mechanics, let's look at Venom Spray as a Pokemon power. When you play Beedrill from your hand to evolve your active Pokemon, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned. Guaranteed 2 special conditions, one of which is the most disruptive one in the game. Being paralyzed means that your opponent's Pokemon can't do anything on their turn unless they have a way to get it out of the active position without retreating, like a switch. And because of the added poison, that Pokemon's going to be taking at least 20 damage just for the damage between turns. Needle Rush is a decent attack for 2 colorless energy, but you're mainly here to use Venom Spray over and over and over again, putting your opponent in a perpetual state of not being able to do anything while you rack up poison damage. This can be accomplished by utilizing other e-reader cards like Undersea Ruins and Retro Energy that let you remove the top evolution off of your Pokemon stack, allowing you to re-evolve into Beedrill and get that Venom Spray turn after turn. In both cases, you do have to discard the Beedrill, but thankfully there is a great e-reader engine that you can use to search out new Beedrill and recycle them out of the discard. The Apricorn Maker Supporter card lets you grab trainers out of your deck that have the word Ball in their name, which allows you to search for Dual Ball, Fast Ball, and Lure Ball, giving you speedy options for grabbing your Weedle, Kakuna, and Beedrill. Lure Ball especially lets you grab those Beedrill that get discarded by your Retro Energies and Undersea Ruins so that you can just re-evolve into them and not have to worry about them being stuck in the discard. E-Reader Speedrill actually exemplifies the type of deck I like to play, where you are fully utilizing the full strength of your deck in the first few turns. You know on turn 3 whether or not you're going to win or lose. No prolonged matches. Straightforward, search, setup, shenanigans. The Beedrill from EX Fire Red and Leaf Green is another interesting one, and could technically buy into the Speedrill archetype since you did have access to rare candy in the formats where this Beedrill was legal. Poison Sting was a pretty decent attack for if you went second, that way you could get an early advantage, put some pressure on your opponent, but Link Needle is where the focus is really going to be because you can deal up to an additional 90 damage. 140 is going to knock out pretty much anything you're up against in these formats, but it is an attack of diminishing returns because you didn't really have a consistent way to, 1, get that many Beedrills into play that quickly, and 2, recycle those Beedrills so that you made sure you always had the other 3 in play. The Weedle and Kakuna from the set are helpful in helping you search out more Weedle to get onto the bench, as well as stalling until turn 3, so that you didn't have to rely on double rainbow energy. You could just get those 3 grass onto Beedrill, make your opponent a little fearful of attacking that Kakuna during your second phase. Ultimately, there were just better decks for damage output with 3 energy off of a stage 2. Talking about Nidoqueen here. And so Beedrill never really saw all that much play due to its consistency issues, but it is still a really fun rogue deck to try out for these formats. Delta Species Beedrill is another interesting one where you get this Pokemon power in Final Sting that is kind of like a callback to Venom Spray, but you have to knock out Beedrill. If you do, then your opponent's defending Pokemon is paralyzed and poisoned, but it's a double poison roll, so it's going to take 2 damage counters between turns instead of just 1. So it's not going to be the basis of any type of deck, more of a support card. But man, if you're giving your opponent a prize, you better make sure you have a backup attacker that is going to fully utilize the special conditions that you've put on your opponent, maybe like an area dose from Unseen Forces. But for any of you guys that were playing around this Haul-On era, you know that single prize decks were very difficult to run. Everything was dominated by EX decks, except for maybe your Solar Rock Lunatone decks. There were just too many options for your opponent to get out of those special conditions that it doesn't make it worth giving them a prize card to inflict them in the first place. Otherwise, it would be a pretty decent strategy to inflict these very detrimental special conditions on your opponent's active. Let them take one prize card if you're able to follow up and knock out one of their EX Pokemon and take 2 prizes yourself. But that wasn't really the case. The card didn't have enough support to really follow through, so didn't see much play. Oh look, another Versus Series Beedrill. This one from the Manaphy movie promotional half deck. This is Phantom's Beedrill, and there's not much to talk about here. It's not very good, even for a basic Pokemon. Into the Diamond and Pearl era, when we had Great Encounters Beedrill, it did have a pretty decent attack where you could deal up to 120 damage for 1 energy, but it just required so much setup. You needed so many cards to actually pull this off early game, and even then, it was so easy to just get outpaced by Infercaddy decks or to have your extra Weedle sniped by Empoleon. It was a fun deck and made for a really good rogue, but it just wasn't up to snuff on the competitive level. Like a lot of early gen Pokemon in the TCG, Beedrill kind of started to get pushed to the side as newer Pokemon begin to take the spotlight, but I do like the theme with the swarming Beedrill. You do more damage for the more you have in play. I really like that gimmick for Beedrill. With Rising Rivals, we got another Beedrill. It has the Flutter Wings power, where once during your turn, you can search your deck for a grass Pokemon, show it to your opponent, and put it in your hand. This was a pretty useful ability for grass decks, but it wasn't really doing anything that Ultra Ball, Quick Ball, and Great Ball weren't already doing. So if you were using this Beedrill, it was only as a support card, because Needle Shock is a pretty decent attack that you can pull off. You can stall your opponent for a turn by paralyzing and poisoning their active, but it just wasn't enough to hold on its own. And it did have a very supporting Kakuna that could rapidly evolve, but it still wasn't quite enough to keep up with the meta. Next up is Beedrill G from the Arceus set, and as a basic Pokemon, it's a bit of a haymaker. You can play it from your hand, attach an energy, and deal 40 damage, but that's about all it's good for. So again, it's just one of those niche cards that would fit into some grass decks, but it just really wasn't on a competitive level. With the Unleashed set, we did get back into this Beedrill Rogue deck territory where Twin Needle could deal up to 100 damage for 1 energy. If you can evolve up into Beedrill fast enough, this is a huge threat early game. And if you don't want to risk it on those coin flips, you could always attach 2 energy for Paralyzed Poison, which brings back the classic combo of potentially poison and paralysis. So not as definitive or reliable as that Skyridge Beedrill, but still pretty threatening if you can pull it off quickly. Which you can do without the help of any trainers, because the Unleashed Weedle and Kakuna both have the Speed Evolution attack that basically just lets you evolve straight from the deck for only 1 energy. Plasma Freeze Beedrill is yet another version of the Pokemon in the TCG that is great early game, where you can attach only 1 energy and get a pretty decent effect off of it, but it's going to be quickly outpaced by everything else in the metagame. But artwork wise, this is one of the only depictions of Beedrill that doesn't focus on its big needles. Instead, it focuses on its bee legs. Look at it kicking that ice. XY Beedrill, a stage 2 that requires coin flips to really be good. Who gives a shit? Where's the Mega? It's actually in the XY promos, where Beedrill EX is not good at all, but Hazard Stinger can be really fun on turn 2. It's just a shame that you do have to discard the energy attached to it, or else it would be a much better attack. You also have to get that Beedrill Spirit Link onto it to be good, and even then, you know, it's still... it's not great. This is pretty disappointing, actually. I love Mega Evolution as a video game mechanic, but as a TCG mechanic, it just was not thought through very well and was not executed properly. But between XY and the XY promos, there was a Primal Clash Beedrill that was a pretty fun rogue kind of card, where with Allergic Shock, you could attack your opponent's Pokemon and it put them into panic mode because they either had to remove it from the active position or just get straight up knocked out next turn by any damaging attack. But this was a stage 2 Pokemon that was in a format dominated by big basic EX Pokemon, so of course it didn't see very much play. So with evolutions, we usually don't have a whole lot to talk about because they really just reprint the base set era Pokemon with updated HP and damage to the attacks to make them slightly more viable. But just look at this Beedrill. I mean, let's compare it to the base set one. Look at how much they had to change. It basically just kept its artwork, weakness, and retreat cost. Everything else had to be changed to make it more viable. I really don't know what they were thinking. Just reduce the energy costs or something. They even just gave it a completely new attack with Swarming Sting to make it more like previous Beedrill archetypes, I guess. Poor Evolution's Beedrill, like, it's just a trash card. A lot like the base set one, to be fair, but still. Crimson Invasion. This is another Beedrill. I really like the artwork on this one, and I like the simple energy cost damage output here. Sudden Sting is a pretty good attack, as it is buying into that Paralyzed Poison Beedrill motif. Sharp Sting isn't quite enough for a Stage 2 Pokemon to really be a threat. I think this Beedrill in particular is a really good theme deck card. Not particularly competitive though. Some more enjoyable artwork from the Team Up Beedrill. You get this really cool Destiny Stinger attack, which could potentially be a huge threat in the age of GX Pokemon, especially Team Up cards, to where if you just get one damage counter onto this Beedrill using the effect of another one of your Pokemon, which is pretty simple to do, then you can waltz in with one energy and take 3 prize cards, only giving your opponent 1, which is a more than fair trade for getting this Beedrill set up. It's just making sure that the Weedles stay in play for a full turn before you can evolve up into Beedrill in any way and actually pose a threat with Destiny Stinger. This Beedrill could make an amazing tech. Just do a 1 or 2 of per deck. I don't recall it seeing a whole lot of play, but the potential for Rogue is definitely there. Champion's Path Beedrill is just whatever. It's a theme deck card, basically. Vivid Voltage Beedrill is just too niche to ever really be usable in any way. Let's just get to the Beedrill that I want to talk about the most. Single Strike Beedrill from Chilling Reign. With the elegantly simple Persist Sting attack for only 1 grass energy, if your opponent has a special energy attached to it, it is knocked out. An amazing answer to Arceus V and Blissey V that really like to load up and accelerate with double turbo energy, especially scoring those key knockouts on Arceus V before it can evolve up into Arceus V Star. And if your opponent doesn't know your deck list, you can get some amazing surprise knockouts by utilizing Mustard. That's why this Beedrill was such a threat at various regional championships and even the national championships this year, because your opponent can get down to 1 card, play a Mustard, Beedrill's on the bench, any number of ways to promote it up into the active position, attach 1 grass energy, take 2 prizes. At the time of recording this video, the World Championships have not occurred yet, and this video won't be posted until after the World Championships have happened, but I am curious to see if Beedrill plays as much as a role in the World Championships as it has in these regional championships. With the rise of Palkia and Darkrai decks, which just utilize basic energy cards, this Beedrill has become less relevant. I just love the idea of something being such an amazing tech that it can give you a 1-turn surprise knockout on one of the biggest threats in the metagame. That's the type of card that I absolutely adore. And at the time of recording this video, the Astral Radiance Beedrill V is the most recent printed Beedrill, and it doesn't exactly live up to the power of a lot of other prominent V cards, but it does have its usefuls. That Swarming Sting attack can be really good for getting some snipes on big Pokemon setting up on your opponent's bench, but the 3 energy cost really drags it down and makes it too slow to really get any key knockouts given the pace of the metagame. But I will say it got an absolutely gorgeous alternate full art. I remember when the Astral Radiance scans were first starting to come out, this was one of the most anticipated cards for collectors purely for the art. It really allows you to take in all that natural Beedrill splendor. And there you go, all the Beedrills printed thus far in the mainline TCG. Get down in those comments, let me know what your favorite Beedrills are, let me know what your least favorite Beedrill is. Let me know if I missed any key facts or competitive moments. really just anything chuck down in there. It doesn't even have to be about Beedrill. It doesn't have to be about cardboard playing cards or Pokemon at all. Let me know what your favorite sandwich is. Social media links in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.